Hello, I'm Josiah Robinson, and we're here at the Edge of Chaos in Birmingham, Alabama. Today, I am interviewing Mr. James Jimmy Farless for the 1917 clinic. It is UAB's premier AIDS clinic. James Jimmy Farless was born in Hollywood, Florida on 1960, January 27th. Throughout his life, he has been many things: a bartender, a nurse, a manager, a store clerk, but he has always been resilient. He has been positive for 31 years, but he's much more than just a patient. He enjoys life to its fullest. Jimmy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Good to have you. Good to be here.
All right, glad to be here.
Okay. Just gonna kind of dive into your personal life a little bit before we get into the AIDS thing. Kind of set up your background a little bit. Could you tell me a little bit about your early childhood, maybe your life in Florida, your parents, things like that?
I was born in Hollywood, Florida. I did well in school. I was a member of the Boy Scouts, all that kind of good stuff. Abuse in the family. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was a very abusive father. So, difficult childhood. But I had loving grandparents, uncles, aunts, and everything, and cousins. It made things better. I went through school down there in Hollywood. To me, it was the basic childhood. You know, I didn't think I was any different from anyone else. Just I had more rules.
Yeah, I understand. So, the abuse, you spoke to the abuse.
Yes.
Mother was an alcoholic, dad was physical?
Yeah, physical.
So was that something that was always present?
Yes, that was always present. My father, he was a truck driver. He was always on the road, but when he came home, he took all of his aggression out on my mom and me. I had broken arms, legs, different things. My mom had every bone in her body broke by him just about. And it was rough because I wanted to run away from it, but I couldn't. And I think the only reason my mom didn't leave him years ago was because she was afraid that he would kill her.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, continuing on through, so that was childhood, kind of getting into the teenage years.
Right.
Could you kind of talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, as I went through middle school seemed like it went by real fast. And then in the 9th grade, one of my friends that I was with decided we would skip school. And I thought, well, no one's going to notice this one time. Let's get out and I'll do this. While we was out, he made a comment, and it was like a sexual comment. And I was like, okay, I didn't know how to take it, and I dared it. Well, it happened, and at the time, because I told him no, because I told him to stop, and I called it as rape, because when you tell somebody to stop and they don't, it's very, it's not fair to you. Because I had never, before that whole time, I had never masturbated. I had never even thought about sex. You know, I really didn't. I didn't even think about sex, and I was like, okay. That triggered something there, and I just didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know how to explain it to my family. That's when I learned about my sexuality. And then I had an uncle at the time, my gay uncle. He took me to my first gay bar. When he took me there, I was like mouth wide open because I was like in shock. There's this many gay people. I thought I was like one of few. And he's like, no, you're not. And so once that happened, I started feeling more comfortable about myself. It was a little hard because I was hiding it from my mom still. She knew, but she wanted me to be comfortable with myself. She wanted me to give it being straight a chance. And I did. I tried to be straight, but it wasn't me. I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable in my own skin.
The gay uncle took you to the gay bar, right?
Yes.
So describe that. You said you had that shock, but What happened? Did you go home with anybody? What happened?
I didn't go home with them. I took some magazines home and I started reading up, on the places, and I was like very amused by the places. So I would just go out just to the bars and just collect information. I was wanting to read up on it and see, and I really wasn't sexual till I was about 16. At 16, that's when I met Rod. I thought Rod was the perfect thing. Everybody was like, oh, well, he's ugly. He was an older man, yes. He was 20, maybe 30 years older than I was at the time. I guess I always looked for older men because I wanted that father figure. Because I never had a father. My father was always away from home. I didn't have a father figure to play ball or nothing like that with. Or not to talk over sexual questions or anything. I only had my mother working as a barback at 16. And I would help stock the bar, put ice and stuff like that. I was working as a barback because I couldn't work as a bartender. Things happened, and at the time I didn't know about all this HIV. I didn't think it was going to happen to me. We played around. Then we became very close. I spent more time with Rod, and then finally one day he came to me and told me that he was HIV positive, and I was like, oh, it was hard. He asked me to go get tested, which I went to go get tested, and I tested positive. And I was like, wow, what's this all about? I got depressed. I couldn't even go to my little job as the barback because I thought I was dying. At the time, they told me I probably had 2 years to live. You got to figure, all right, I'm 16 going on 17, and I'm like, okay, I'm dying. Didn't know what to do. Where did I go from here? I was lost. I had my mom. She knew about my virus because I told her the first thing. Because that was one thing I could finally tell her, because she always told me, she said, oh, don't get with him. He looks like he's got AIDS. I'm like, what is the look? What is the look? How can you just look at somebody and say, they got AIDS? She says, well, I saw it in Liberace, I saw it in, and I was like, whoa.
So you came out as gay before you were
Right.
aware that you had AIDS?
Right,
Yes.
right,
So,
I did.
Will you just kind of talk me through how those were different? Because those are two very big announcements, right?
Well, you got to realize, go back to the rape, because after the rape, a few months later, I was thinking, okay, that really didn't, it really felt good. It really felt like something I want to embrace a little bit more. And so I did. I thought about it, read about it, but I thought, no, my family will not ever accept me if I'm gay. I knew how they treated my uncle, the way they always talked about him. They always used to call, "Help, here comes cream pitcher," and I never knew what that meant. They always had different names for my uncle, and I was like, wow, how could y'all be so rude? So I was scared at first to, tell anybody. When I finally came out and told my mom, she said, oh, it's a phase you're going through. You'll see. Well, I decided, I wouldn't tell my father because, he always said, talked about taking faggots across the road, across through Mexico and selling them to the Mexicans. And, I was like, you want to be sold to no Mexican?
I wanted you to speak to the stigma of HIV/AIDS even within the gay community. To me, just kind of as an outsider, it would seem they would be more accepting because that's their friends, that's their family, right? But you spoke to, you were in a gay biker.
Yeah, I was in a gay biker club. The straight biker club didn't want me in.
Yeah.
Well, the gay biker club, I was probably about the only male figure in it with a bunch of lesbians, and they didn't understand. Like, I had a friend of mine, she came up and asked me to check her blood, with my meter that I have, because she thought her sugar was low or whatever. And she says, now, I can't get AIDS from that, can I? And I was like, I'm using a brand new needle. She was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. You know, a lot of people, they think, well, you can get it from kissing, or you can get it from this or that. There is campgrounds, you know, gay campgrounds out. The gay campgrounds are like sex clubs. And as soon as they find out you're HIV positive, still to this day, they're a little funny about it, because they're like, okay, if they're not part of us, then we don't have to worry about getting the AIDS. Well, not everybody tells their, you know, their story. Not everybody says, okay, I'm positive. Like in the bars today, they're really getting more educated.
You do a lot of that education,
yeah.
right? It's a big thing that's important to you. Is that because there was not any of that when you were first experiencing it?
Yes, I feel that I'm not only a patient, but I can teach about it. UAB, every year, the students come in, the first medical students, when they first come in, I go and talk to them about HIV, you know, let them act like I'm their patient. I'm the first patient they see, because they've never dealt with it before. If you can't sit in the same room with somebody that's HIV positive and not worry about having all these gloves and all these masks on and everything, you don't need to be a nurse. You know, the best thing is, I like to educate people on the HIV. I didn't have that years ago. I didn't have people educate me. You know, I didn't have some manual saying, well, this is what you do when you're HIV positive. This is how you build a better relationship. I didn't have all that.
Because it was still gay cancer.
Right, gay cancer. It was, you know, people, if you got AIDS, you're dying like today. A lot of people think, okay, it's the AIDS clinic. It's the HIV clinic, because you don't have AIDS, you know, right away. HIV is your first thing, you know, you go through. If your system just goes down, then you become full-blown AIDS. But to me, I tell people, you don't have AIDS until you get that part, get that way. You're HIV, you know, you're HIV positive.
I understand faith is a big part of your life,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Would you kind of speak to that, and then the struggles with that I imagine not only the homosexuality, but even if you find a church that's accepting of homosexuality,
Right.
then you have the HIV/AIDS barrier. So could
Right.
you?
Well, when I was, faith, as a kid, I was baptized Methodist, went to a Baptist church, went to a Catholic school. So, I mean, it was like, okay, I was part of all the religions at one time. I got out of church and still dealing with life as a kid and as growing up. I started going to an MCC church in Fort Lauderdale. MCC is mostly gay churches. You know, they're gay accepting churches. They gay, lesbian, transgender, they accept all people. It was a wonderful church. Well, when I moved up to Gadsden here, I was like, okay, I'll probably find one of them here. I did. There was one in Gadsden. It was small, and I've been to the gay church here in Birmingham. They're good people. Right, 83, 84 in that area. When you went to the churches down there, when they went out to lunch, you wasn't part of that group, because the HIV people were a group. Then you had your people that had money, they're a group. And then you got your bears, they're a group. And then, you know, you got, everybody broke off into a little group. Here, I was left alone with maybe one or two people that we just were like, nobody cared. I mean, we felt welcome in the church, but, you know, no one wanted anything to do with us other than church. It's a lot different now than it was back then. Well, now, the churches, they have counseling, they have support groups and everything, and things are better. The HIV community is much bigger. The churches have got to learn, got to get involved, and that's what's helped them. I have a very good pastor, my Reverend March Regona. She is wonderful. She, you know, she has put away a lot of friends from HIV that died. Me and her, we got to talking about it one day, and she said, "Do you think it's ever going to end?" And I said, "No." I said, "But we do have our memories."
You've gone to MCC Church, which contains a lot of the congregation is gay, is transgender, it has all those different things, right? How do you think other church congregations, which traditionally do not have those populations, can grow more accepting and understanding of AIDS and HIV?
For one instance, our church a few years ago burned down. We were at Woodlawn Methodist Church. They accepted us right on into their service when they moved to another church. They're accepting a lot better than they used to be. The HIV situation in a regular church is not talked about. I think if all the other churches would have a little bit of education, it would help them a little bit more, because there's still those people that think, it's not my family. It's hard. It's hard to know what other churches, the Baptist churches, because the Baptists are really the hardest, I believe. The Methodists seem to really care. Catholics add a little wine and they don't care either. My thought in this situation, if they believe in God and their love is pure, then they can love anybody unconditionally.
So what words would you have for a person who is maybe straight, maybe on the outside, kind of looking, and they don't know anybody with HIV/AIDS, they don't maybe not even, have any close personal friends that are gay or anything? What would you say to them regarding HIV/AIDS?
Tell them is to embrace everybody, because everybody knows somebody that is gay. They may not know it. They may not know it, but they're there. Whether they're family, it could be your own kids, it could be when they grow up. No one knows it. Being gay is not a choice. I didn't just choose one day to wake up and say, okay, I'm gay. Just love them for who they are, not what they are. In this world, we have too many titles. We got straight, gay, just everything's got a title to it. That person's HIV positive. Well, just because that person's HIV positive, that person is a human being too. They breathe the same air you breathe, have the same blood, understand and love them for who they are. Don't condemn. Who are we to judge? It's not up to us to judge anybody. Love as you would want to be loved, and this world will get along a lot better.
Dr. Laracy at UAB's English department is developing a play called One Clear Light, and it's a collection of stories and events in AIDS patients, HIV and AIDS patients' lives. It is kind of springboarded off of the 1917 clinic. How effective do you think this will be in reducing stigma, and what do you think of the theater as a medium for this?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that we're talking about it and getting involved, because when I first came out, I didn't have none of that. This can get out to more people. More people can be educated and understand things more. And I think if people will get out there and listen to these kind of stories, watch the plays, or just get involved. If you're HIV positive, tell your story, because that is more therapy than anything I've ever done in life. And it's really more educational to yourself. So I'm blessed to be able to tell my story, and I hope that people are ready to listen.
Well, thank you very much, Jimmy, for coming out and telling your story. Very admirable. Thank you for having the courage and the desire to share your story and the healing that is brought with sharing that story.
Well, thank you for having me. I think more people should do this.
Definitely.
But thank you for having me, and it's been enjoyable.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.